President Obama's press secretary Josh Earnest was quick to defend the president's actions. Former President George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara are doing much better tonight after they were hospitalized earlier this week. It started erupting back in 1983. Some of these lava flows are 80 feet deep. Very unusual scene taking place here on Capitol Hill. Dozens of Democratic lawmakers are staging a sit-in protest. They are demanding a vote on new gun laws. Imagine with a plane like this, you didn't have to do a lot of cleaning on it. It looks brand new almost.
This aircraft is in great condition.
What are the possible uses for this C-27J? But American allies in the Middle East don't necessarily agree. President Obama met here at the White House with Saudi Arabia's foreign minister on Friday, and he says a political solution can only happen through the use of force. America Tonight began investigating the privatized medical care in Arizona prisons last year.
They decided to use sugar, kitchen sugar.
What do you mean they used kitchen sugar?
The packets like McDonald's, the sugar, they would open it, pour it inside, and put gauze over it, and tape it up. And I had to do that for like 3 weeks.
Like the little packets of McDonald's sugar you get
Yeah.
when you order a coffee.
Yeah, or 7-Eleven.
And they ripped
They're
them
all
open,
donate, yeah.
And they poured them in your C-section.
Yeah.
America Tonight went to the legislator who actually wrote the law privatizing prison health care, Representative John Kavanaugh. Does that sound like adequate health care to you?
That doesn't sound like a true allegation. That sounds ridiculous. You know, prisoners have, 24/7 to think up allegations and write letters. I'm not saying that some of them can't have a basis in fact, but you got to take them with a grain of salt, or in the case of the hospital, maybe a grain of sugar.
Historical records show that vast amounts of land, once under Apache control, were carved out of the reservation by the U.S. government to enable industrial mining back in the early 1900s. Private companies extracted a fortune in minerals with minimal benefit to the tribe. For Nosy, the story was all too familiar. Do you think the Apache people will see any benefit from it?
Oh, look at all the mines here already.
We wanted to ask him a few questions about why the land swap was tacked onto the defense bill. How did this thing get through Congress?
You're welcome to join our community meeting and listen to the answers given in our community meeting. Thank you. We're done.
Shortly after that exchange, Resolution's crisis management consultant told us we would get an interview. So it's the day after the meeting, and Resolution promised us that we would get a tour of the mine and a sit-down interview with an official. But abruptly, they have backed out of those plans.
It's state-sanctioned kidnapping. It's devastating, you know. It's stealing of children. Spider-Man.
Rob Manzanares and his fiancée are raising 3 children. But there's an empty seat at the dinner table he's been fighting to fill for 6 years. Rob claims his former girlfriend gave their daughter Kaya up for adoption secretly, without his knowledge or consent. Should some of these biological fathers get their kids back?
Well, it's going to depend on...
Some of the cases have had problems.
Yeah, it's going to...
Would you admit that?
Sure, of course. I mean, assuming that we can prove that a fraud has happened or been perpetrated, what's the best way to solve that problem? Is it to remove a child from a home they've been raised in, or is it to punish the person who committed the fraud?
Wouldn't you say, though, that the biological father is then punished anyway?
Well,
if he is the victim of fraud?
Well, that's punishment, I think, is kind of the wrong term, because...
Well, if you don't have your kid, what is it?
Well, I mean, here's the question. Why don't they have the child?
Tesla executives are firing back at their competition in their first TV interview about mounting lawsuits filed by traditional auto dealers. Tesla VP Diarmuid O'Connell spoke to America Tonight. Are these legal battles brought on by auto dealers associations hampering Tesla's success?
I would love to be spending my time doing other things.
Jim Appleton runs the New Jersey Auto Dealers Association, another state battling Tesla in court. A writer for Yahoo Auto has accused auto dealer associations across the country, including yours, of operating basically a cartel because of the influence you have over state legislatures. Does he have a point? Just 51, Brett Walls suffered an uncommon form of stroke where the brain stem is actually severed. It created a condition called locked-in syndrome. Although Brett was fully aware mentally, physically, all he could do was blink.
But it's not easy.
Sometimes it probably feels good to let it out, huh?
It will make me cry.
We could only communicate with Brett through his message board. You blame United Healthcare for his current condition.
Absolutely.
Kind of described him as renegade.
I would describe him as renegade and his followers and communities as renegade Amish.
They have said that your husband believes he is a prophet, that he talks directly to God. Is that true?
My husband, I'm not sure how to word it that anybody would even understand.
What does platinum mean anymore? I mean,
Pearson invited us to her private recording studio in Woodstock, New York, a kitschy shrine to the band's past.
we won the MTV Music Video Award for Love Shack.
You're okay? You're okay with that?
Yes, you can have another hug.
A simple hug. 6 months ago, this would have been impossible for Jennifer Geeson. Baby steps, right? Her obsessive-compulsive disorder had taken control of her life. She wore gloves all the time, 24/7, and no one could touch her. Can you describe for me how you feel as you're about to head in here and undergo this major change?
It's just like I'm looking forward to it, so it's kind of like a kid on Christmas morning.
As a last resort, she decided to undergo radical surgery.
How you doing? Okay, it's all right. We're almost done.
You're gonna hear just a little bit of noise, drilling sound, but this should not hurt.
A groundbreaking procedure called deep brain stimulation. Could you take them off for me? 6 months later, the gloves came off.
It's possible. It's physically possible for me to be happy. I mean, it can happen.
Today is the Great American Smokeout, the American Cancer Society's annual event urging smokers to quit. Despite the well-documented risks, everything from cancer to heart disease, 1 in 5 Americans still smokes. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have turned to a pill to help them quit, called Chantix. Some successfully quit smoking, but others have died. We obtained these documents. They reveal hundreds of Chantix users have committed suicide. In Huntsville, Alabama, 28-year-old James Mayhall pleads guilty to a burglary, a felony, and receives a 1-year sentence in the state penitentiary. Prosecutors say after being fired from his job, the truck driver broke into this warehouse at night, armed with a rifle, and then fled police.
James, how are you?
Hey James, it's Adam May. How are you? In an interview from jail, Mayhall tells America Tonight he was delusional, suffering from the side effects of Chantix, a drug designed to help people quit smoking.
I just snapped.
Hundreds of miles away in a suburban Chicago neighborhood.
It was just like all of a sudden, boom, something went wrong.
Tina Hurst and her self-described perfect life as a wife, mother, businesswoman came unhinged after she started taking Chantix.
I started walking around the house, screaming, yelling, crying. I was threatening suicide at that time. I threatened to jump out of the moving car. And then the police came and the paramedics, and they had to tie me up, put restraints on me.
Hurst wound up in this hospital, 5 days in a locked psychiatric ward. The experience prompted Hurst to start a blog about Chantix, where according to comments posted on her site, it could have been a lot worse.
This one was just posted August 31st. I lost my best friend and father to my children. He was taking Chantix. He had become very angry. He hung himself in front of me. I could not save him.
According to U.S. Food and Drug Administration documents obtained by America Tonight under the Freedom of Information Act, 544 suicides have been reported to the FDA as adverse events associated with Chantix in the last 5 years. FDA documents also show 1,869 attempted suicides associated with Chantix. Dr. Michael Siegel, a professor at Boston University's School of Public Health, has studied tobacco and smoking for 25 years.
We know that Chantix
has effects on the neurotransmitters in the brain. For example, we know that it affects serotonin levels. Serotonin is known to be involved in mental illnesses, especially in depression. So it's actually not surprising that a drug like Chantix could have effects on personality and could lead to depression and suicidality.
Approved by the Food and Drug Administration in 2006, Chantix users began reporting troubling side effects almost immediately. Some of the cases detailed in this report are bizarre, others are downright chilling. A 24-year-old woman woke up her sleeping boyfriend and started beating him because he looked too peaceful. A 42-year-old man walked up to a stranger in a bowling alley and suddenly punched him. And another man choked his wife, then hung himself. Thomas Moore, a senior researcher with the Institute for Safe Medication Practices, studied these and other violent acts reportedly linked to Chantix. He was also a consultant to lawyers suing the drug's manufacturer, Pfizer, over those side effects.
These cases had three striking characteristics. First, the violence was absolutely unpredictable and senseless. Second, the victim was just anybody who happened to be nearby. Could have been a fiancé, could have been mother, could have been a police officer. And thirdly, these people had no previous history of any kind of violence and were unlikely prospects for a violent act.
In May 2008, the Institute for Safe Medication Practices published a report saying the organization had immediate safety concerns about Chantix among persons operating aircraft, trains, buses, and other vehicles. That report prompted the FAA and Defense Department to ban Chantix use among pilots and air traffic controllers. The federal agency that governs truckers, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, said Chantix may adversely affect the driver's ability to safely operate a motor vehicle. And the Department of Transportation sent a memo to the Federal Railroad Administration warning of the potential threat to public safety caused by the anti-smoking drug Chantix. Moore thinks those restrictions don't go far enough.
People who carry weapons for a living, such as police officers, military, but others, should not take a drug which is now well documented can cause uncontrollable rage.
The Food and Drug Administration, in a statement to America Tonight, says an analysis of controlled clinical trials found no more violence among Chantix-treated patients than in placebo-treated patients. Even so, in 2009, the FDA, citing the small but potentially serious risk of neuropsychiatric events, required what's known as a black box warning label, the most serious warning possible, alerting potential Chantix users and their doctors that Chantix has been associated with reports of changes in behavior, such as hostility, agitation, depressed mood, and suicidal thoughts or actions. Dr. Michael Siegel at Boston University says it's unrealistic to ask doctors to be on the lookout for attempted suicide.
I would argue that if death is a side effect that you're warning about, and that's the case with Chantix because the black box warning says, look out for suicide. The patient may commit suicide. If that's what the side effect is, then the warning is ineffective. There's no point to having the warning because if the patient commits death and the physician monitors for it and finds out the patient died, you can't do anything. It's too late.
Tina Hurst says she has no doubt Chantix was to blame for her mental breakdown. Besides taking that drug, any other changes in your life in the weeks or months leading up to this psychotic episode? No other medication?
No other medication.
No changes in your diet?
No.
Any hardship at home?
Absolutely not.
Job problems?
No, not at all.
How convinced are you that the drug was what caused this breakdown?
Without a doubt. I went off the deep end. It changed my mind. It changed my brain. It changed the chemical in my brain. And it caused this. Absolutely. I am absolutely positive that it was the Chantix.
Pfizer, the drug company that manufactures Chantix, recently paid close to $300 million to settle most of the 2,700 lawsuits filed against the company over Chantix suicides and other serious side effects.
Herb quit smoking with Chantix and support.
At the same time, the company has also stepped up its advertising of the drug. The federal judge overseeing the Chantix lawsuits, Inga Johnson, says the FDA black box warning is sufficient warning of the drug's potential risks, making future litigation unlikely. Dr. Siegel says the FDA should pull Chantix from the market.
If they seriously think that the risk of suicide is high enough and that it warrants a black box warning about suicide, then I think they have no choice but to take the drug off the market, because a black box warning for suicide is not an effective deterrent.
Pfizer declined to sit down with us for this story. In a statement, the company said, Chantix is an important treatment option for adult smokers who want to quit. Pfizer says doctors have written more than 9 million prescriptions for Chantix in the United States. Worldwide sales of the drug to date top $4 billion.
They need to take Chantix off the market. They need to take it off the market.
Tina Hurst says her life is finally back to normal. She turned down a settlement offer from Pfizer so she could keep speaking out against Chantix.
I'm very fortunate that I'm okay and that I'm living a great life right now and that that's behind me. It could have turned out much differently. I could have been like many of the other people that have taken Chantix and killed themselves or hurt somebody else.
James Mayhall wishes everything had turned out differently.
I've never been in trouble in my life. I've had 2 speeding tickets in my entire life. I'm just an average Joe, a blue-collar worker. I paid my taxes. I never hurt anybody. In just 1 week, I changed my personality, lost my job, just about ruined everything.
Now facing 9 more months behind bars, hard time he blames on Chantix. Once again tonight, we reached out to a representative from Pfizer. We asked him to appear on this program. He did not respond to that email. The FDA has no plans to pull Chantix from the market. That federal agency has asked Pfizer to investigate the reports of violence by Chantix users and report back. That report is not due until the year 2017. Why did you agree to talk to us, Rudy? Rudy Rupak breaks his silence months after an America Tonight investigation revealed his international surrogacy company, Planet Hospital, took hundreds of thousands of dollars from dozens of couples, but never delivered them babies. How much money do you owe people?
Around $350,000.
$350,000.
Right.
To how many different clients?
Total of about 16 or 17.
Can you write these people checks right now?
I cannot. I'm sorry to say that, but I cannot.
Planet Hospital closed shop at the beginning of this year. Fertility doctors and other vendors quit providing services because they weren't getting paid. It was a disaster.
It's an absolute disaster. It just unraveled. The whole process just unraveled completely. Yeah, crash and burn. Mm-hmm.
Chris Palmer and Jonah Wynn from New Mexico signed up with Planet Hospital in May 2013. They traveled to Cancun, Mexico, after Rudy Rupak promised to hire an egg donor, a fertility doctor, and a Mexican surrogate to carry the couple's baby.
You could see the Caribbean, and the blue waters, and it was amazing. It was gorgeous. And, we just sort of put our wishes out into the universe there.
But their journey to fatherhood in paradise quickly turned into a nightmare.
The clinic pulled out, and we had to switch clinics, and then we ended up with a U.S. egg donor who turned out to be homophobic and basically left us in the lurch. We lost over $20,000 from Planet Hospital trying to do surrogacy in Mexico. It was devastating. You put so much money and you put so much emotion into the whole process, and you're so close, and then it just explodes.
This is a copy of the contract that you had with Chris and Jonah.
Yes.
And on the top of page 7, could you just read what that first couple of lines say?
Either party may terminate the agreement for any reason before the transfer of the embryos into the surrogate. In the event of a termination of the agreement before transfer, that any funds transferred to the company shall be refunded in their entirety within 15 days.
Did Chris and Jonah have an embryo transfer?
They did not have an embryo transfer.
Why did they not get a full refund?
Actually, they did. They went on camera and said they didn't, but you know what? They reversed their credit card charges.
But they also say that they sent you this check for $16,000. And here's a letter from Sarah at your office acknowledging that you guys took in that check for $16,000. They claim they're owed $16,000.
But you know what? We provided, I know what the contract says, but we did provide services to
But your
them.
contract specifically says embryo transfer. They did not get an embryo transfer. Don't they deserve that $16,000, Rudy?
I needed time to do that because by giving them a refund, I'm denying somebody else a chance to do their thing because it's going to hurt for my cash flow.
I was going to put an end to this. It was my absolute goal to put an end to Planet Hospital.
D.C. trial lawyer Jonathan Daly, another would-be father, says he lost $37,000.
There's nothing I haven't seen, I used to say as a trial lawyer in this crazy world of ours, but this was a first for me because I'd never seen the level of victimization where you take someone whose hopes and dreams of childhood are so imperative and so private, and then just outright steal their money and provide nothing in return. I've never seen that level of fraud.
Daly contacted the U.S. Department of Justice about Planet Hospital. The FBI won't comment on any potential activity, but Daly says he received a grand jury subpoena. And after America Tonight's original report, we learned a whistleblower has come forward with intimate knowledge about Planet Hospital. Have you met with the feds?
I have because I have nothing to hide. I wanted to, rather than sit and wonder, and I went to visit them. But, and I'm here talking to you. I'm not a criminal. I have nothing to hide. I made bad business decisions. So I went to visit them and showed them, my side of things.
For now, Rudy Rupak's baby business is on hold. He claims he lost most of his money in a failed attempt to open his own fertility clinic in Mexico. Some former clients are trying to force him into bankruptcy, but Rupak vows he will eventually rebuild Planet Hospital. But it doesn't look like Chris and Jonah will be able to start over. They're not sure if they can ever afford the child they've wanted for years. Who do you guys blame for the problems in Mexico?
Rudy Rupak, certainly.
Absolutely.
I think he's obviously was the captain at the helm who went right into the iceberg.
I would be happy to see him go to jail.
If I was crooked, if I had malintent, the easy thing to do would be to let the bankruptcy happen, start a new company, new name, maybe even have somebody else run the business while I'm in the background. I'm not doing that. I'm fighting the bankruptcy. I'm going to call it Planet Hospital.
Do you think you can actually rebuild your reputation after all of this?
I'm going to do my best. This is my passion, this is my love, and now it's a challenge.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special coverage. I'm Adam May in New York. And Mike, really interesting because as the counting begins right now, recent polling shows that Donald Trump has a very strong lead going into today. It'll be interesting to see if those numbers hold up and mirror the polls, and this will be really a race for second place, and second place has never been so critical. Lenny McAllister, let's start with you. It seems like they like his candor. They like that he says what's on his mind, right? What else are people liking about Donald Trump? How do you explain the runaway Donald Trump right now?
They like to be entertained and not really looking at the issues. The bottom line is, if this is the fifth most religious state, if this...
Lenny, you're saying that a lot of people would find that insulting. I mean, they're saying that they're not paying attention to the issues. Is that really what you think a lot of Republican voters are doing? I need to ask you about comments made by National Review editor Rich Lowry. He's basically saying that he's leading this effort right now to have well-known conservatives denounce Trump, calling him a fake conservative, a menace to the conservative movement. Is Donald Trump a conservative?
Well, he's certainly more conservative than any of the Democrats that are running.
And what do you make about Sarah Palin? She's jumped in?
I think she endorsed Trump, but I don't think she's significant outside of Iowa at this point.
She certainly does have a lot
religious
of money behind her, and she
conservatives
has
still
helped
remember
candidates. Don't you think that her voice in this could change things? Lance, I want to start with you. You're our tech guy on this panel, if we could call you that. We've got 61,000 bridges in this country right now that are deficient. We need $740 billion just to fix our existing roads. Why is this a wise investment of government money? But let's talk about Michigan. I mean, Michigan is a state that is broke. And when you have, what, 51 different U.S. municipalities that filed for bankruptcy between 2010 and 2015, and people are looking to cut costs all over the place, shouldn't we expect things like this, Faiza?